Hey everybody, we're here for the first domestic violence panel, or domestic violence awareness panel. We're going to get started here in just a couple minutes, so just stick with us here for just a second and we'll get going, okay? All right, again, welcome to our Facebook Live panel conference that we have going on today. I'm Sergeant Nikki Woodrow. I'm the supervisor of the Public Relations Unit, and I'll give a brief statement before we get started with our guest today. Domestic violence can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Domestic violence does not discriminate on gender, race, age, sexuality, wealth, or any other factor. Our community needs to take a stand on domestic violence. There are countless people, victims, survivors, children, and families that are impacted by domestic violence. As a community, it is our duty to stand up against domestic violence and have zero tolerance until all victims and survivors can be heard. I wanted to give out some statistics of domestic violence. In America, a woman is fatally shot by a spouse, ex-spouse, or dating partner every 14 hours. There have been 487 domestic violence gun-related fatalities since January 1st this year in America. Locally, there's been 5 domestic violence homicides this year. Officers have made over 6,000 cases involving some sort of domestic violence this year, and Wichita police officers have responded to over 15,000 domestic violence-related calls this year already. Over 2,400 individuals, both men and women, have been arrested by the Wichita Police Department this year for a domestic violence-related crime. Enough is enough. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have some very special guests with us today to help start the conversation about domestic violence. The Public Relations Unit will be monitoring this Facebook Live and will try to answer questions or ask members of the panel to discuss topics for you. This will last about 30 minutes. We will continue to monitor the feed after the live feed is over in case you are watching this at a later time. Please be respectful and remember this is about awareness and education. There is no need to place rude or inappropriate comments in this feed. We have representatives here from Stepstone Ministries, the Young Women's Christian Association Women's Crisis Center, Catholic Charities Harbor House, and our very own Wichita Police Department Domestic Violence Investigation Section. They will all take turns coming up and introducing themselves and speaking to you. First up, we'll have Lieutenant Stevens of our Domestic Violence Detective Section. Lieutenant?
Like she said, my name is Lieutenant Jason Stevens. I'm the unit commander for the Domestic Violence Sex Crime Section here at the Wichita Police Department. I'll start off by just kind of giving you a general overview of how a domestic violence call is handled in the field and ultimately investigated by the detectives and presented to the district attorney or the city prosecutor's office. As she mentioned, there's been a number of, I believe, 15,000 calls of domestic violence this year. Typically, a domestic violence call can come in as a direct call from the victim or a call from a third party that may be witness to or aware of a domestic violence situation. Officers from the Wichita Police Department respond to those calls, and based on information provided by the dispatcher, will determine how they ultimately will approach that call or respond to it. Ideally, they will always contact the victim, and if on scene, the suspect, and begin to conduct interviews and gather evidence and witness statements to assist them in investigating the crime and determining what the next step in the investigation will be. All domestic violence arrests or pickups for arrests are reviewed by a field supervisor. They take into consideration the nature of victim injuries, the existence or non-existence of witnesses, and any other evidence that's available to them in the field. And they make a ultimate determination if a case will be generated and left in suspect status for review by a detective later on, or if an immediate arrest is possible or feasible, and if the suspect has fled the scene, if a temporary pickup for that suspect's arrest is made. In all cases where pickups are issued or arrests are made on felony cases, those cases are reviewed by a city prosecutor on a daily basis after being sorted through by myself and provided to the prosecutor for their review. The city prosecutor, based on the evidence at hand and the probable cause available to them, make an ultimate determination as to whether charges will be formally filed against the suspect or if a pickup is to be taken to a judge and turned into a bench warrant for that person's arrest. In felony cases, a detective will review all of the facts and evidence in the case. They'll do any follow-up investigation necessary to make their case stronger or to cover items of or investigatory steps that the officers in the field weren't able to handle, and ultimately they will put a case together for prosecution to the district attorney's office. And in that process, the district attorney's office will ultimately decide whether or not there's enough evidence and probable cause to proceed further with formal charging, or if they are unable to charge the case in some situations. And really, in a nutshell, that's how the process works. And yeah, that's about all I have for right now until we have questions.
Hello, and good afternoon. My name is Carrie McGregor, and I am the Program Director of Catholic Charities Harbor House. I am very honored to be here today to raise awareness and to educate the community on such an important yet very serious issue that's going on in our community today. I will start off by sharing a little bit about what we do at Harbor House, as well as a special social media campaign that we have going on this month of October to raise awareness for the survivors we serve. Catholic Charities Harbor House has been in existence since 1992 and have served survivors on a multitude of levels. Our ultimate goal is to provide survivors with the resources and support that will allow them to really gain their independence, freedom, and safety back. We do that by providing a safe and confidential and secure location for those that we serve, and also all of our services are free to those who use them. We provide advocacy at multiple levels, as well as counseling for the adults and the children that we serve, and a number of life skills classes ranging from support groups to providing DV education, to as well as life enrichment classes to help them just to learn some new skills that maybe they hadn't had before. And then we also operate with several outreach programs, one being SAFE, which is a collaborative effort between Harbor House and the Department for Children and Families. Our ultimate goal with that project is to really allow survivors to get back into the workforce and to gain some independence, some financial independence back. So it's a great partnership between us and the Department for Children and Families. We also have advocacy in the courts, and we have a housing outreach project that we provide, and we also just have outreach services for those who maybe don't qualify for shelter at this time due to safety concerns, or they really aren't quite sure what they want to do but don't want to necessarily come into shelter at this time. So we do provide those outreach services as well. For the month of October, we are doing a social media campaign that is titled #PurpleThursdayICT. Purple is the color of domestic violence, and what we're really hoping to do is to save a life with a hashtag. So we're really wanting to challenge the community to share their support and make a commitment to the survivors that we serve that we're going to stand against this violence and really stand alongside the survivors. So I really encourage you in the community to wear your purple on Thursdays and to tag that hashtag, and really would like to empower the survivors to go back after the month of October and just see how much of us are standing alongside them. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Lampy, and I'm the Executive Director for the YWCA Wichita. We operate the Women's Crisis Center. The Women's Crisis Center provides emergency shelter and outreach services for victims of domestic violence and their children. We have been in the community since 1976, providing shelter and services for victims of domestic violence. We provide case management, advocacy services, basic needs, safety planning, referral services, plan development to address safety, housing, and employment for those coming into shelter. We also have court advocacy and medical advocacy services for those who are seeking protection orders and those who may present at hospitals, mental health facilities, or doctors' offices as victims of domestic violence. In the area of shelter, just number-wise, for the last program year, we housed 293 women, children, and men. Through our outreach programming annually, we serve around 1,000. This past year, 988 individuals were served through outreach. And those are individuals who need the advocacy, support, safety planning services, but may not need a bed at the time when they are accessing our services. We also offer a variety of education and support groups. We have a basic domestic violence education course, parenting through domestic violence, general support groups, and we do offer a couple of classes and support groups within the jails. Those are at a variety of times throughout the week, and those class times are posted on our website. We go into the community to offer trainings to different professional groups as well. We're happy to go out and speak with different employer groups regarding the dynamics of domestic violence, how to work or visit with someone that may disclose they're experiencing abuse, and to make sure you are familiar with what resources are available within the community should someone disclose to you. For Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we have a couple of campaigns going on. Currently, we are participating in the Allstate Foundation Purple Purse Challenge. The main function of the Purple Purse Challenge is to bring awareness to financial abuse and how that can be one of the main reasons that individuals are unable to leave a violent situation. The Allstate Foundation does a lot of nationwide awareness throughout the month. We are one of 250 organizations across the nation that are participating, and there's information and a link to that on our website. We are also participating in a Final Friday art activity at the end of the month. Our project is the Purple House Project. We will be featuring art from survivors that we have worked with. It will be at Positive Directions Gallery on Friday, October 28th from 6 to 9:30. Not only will we have art that survivors have made on display, but community members who want to attend will also have the opportunity to design art and display it that evening as well. That's all for now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Yoon Kimball, and I'm the Program Director for Stepstone. Stepstone is a 2-year transitional housing program for survivors of domestic violence. After they leave one of our two wonderful shelters, the YWCA Catholic Charities Harbor House, our survivors can come to Stepstone for up to 2 years. During that time, Stepstone provides advocacy services, support groups, and counseling for the women and children who we serve. 2 years is a long time in many people's eyes in regards to transitional housing. But what we have found out in providing transitional housing since 1995 is that 2 years really is not long enough. The trauma that our families survive through is long-standing, and it takes 2 years and not more than that in regards to spending that time in order to heal themselves and to grow into more independence for themselves. They work towards the independence and healing while they're with us through the counseling services and the support groups that our staff hold with them. Since 1995, Stepstone has provided transitional housing for over 700 individuals. And right now, Stepstone owns 14 properties throughout the city of Wichita that we can provide transitional housing for. And an exciting new thing that has just occurred is in the last month, Stepstone, in collaboration with Mennonite Housing, has opened up 28 new units of transitional housing in one congregate site. The congregate site will allow more safety for our families who are coming to us, as well as a sense of family and unity with the families that we are serving. Within that site, we are able to provide all of our groups under one roof and be able to provide a holistic approach to services with our families. So this has been a really exciting time for Stepstone, as this has been an ongoing collaboration with Mennonite for the last several years. We provide indefinite follow-up for the families that we do serve with us, and they can come back to us as often as they need to in regards to outreach services for advocacy and counseling services with us. In the past month, we've also had a collaboration with Catholic Charities Harbor House and the YWCA and the Wichita Area Sexual Assault Center in bringing a window between worlds, which is using art for healing and trauma. And they're a program from California that was able to provide our staff training in order to work with art in providing healing for all of our survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. So this is a really exciting project that all of the programs in Wichita are going to be starting pretty soon. Stepstone, we happen to be a program that has housing and not necessarily housing with the program. So that makes us really unique. And the fact that Stepstone is the only freestanding transitional housing program solely for domestic violence survivors in the state of Kansas.
All right, we have, I'm Officer Davidson with the Wichita Police Department Public Relations Unit. We had a question from Amy. Her question is, I'd like to know what resources are available for survivors of domestic violence that continue to endure domestic violence by proxy. What can we do when the means by which our abusers abuse us have changed? So if there's somebody that can answer that from our panel. They didn't clarify, they just said by proxy, but the means by which their abuse them has changed. What resources are available to somebody who is a domestic violence victim and they're still continuing to, by proxy, being a victim by some means? Yeah, if you want to just come up and...
Not sure I'm addressing the question appropriately, but what I would say, if you are continuing to experience abuse, there are a couple of things you can do. One would be consideration of obtaining a protection from abuse order, and there are advocates that can assist with that process located at the courthouse. We also, both programs, the Women's Crisis Center and Harbor House, have outreach advocates that can meet one-on-one with you if you do not need shelter outside of that, to sit and discuss your situation specifically and individually and help you develop a plan for methods that can assist in addressing those things. If technology are involved, I know we send staff to training on how to address the ever-changing methods that abusers use to victimize individuals. So our staff do try and stay up to date on how to assist the individuals that we serve in those ways. An outreach, a meeting with an outreach advocate would be one option, and also considering obtaining a protection from abuse order would be a second method.
All right, thank you. We have another question, probably directed more towards Lieutenant Stevens. If you could address this question. Shell, I believe I'm saying that correct, Chelle, asked several years ago, She believed there was a law passed that anytime there was a DV call, that someone must be arrested, yet the arrest rate is surprisingly low. Understanding that sometimes the abuser flees the scene, are there other contributing factors making the arrest rate lower than 100%? So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, the law doesn't really specify that someone must always be arrested on all domestic violence calls. We did develop domestic violence guidelines, the state did a number of years ago, that makes it a lot easier for law enforcement to get around some of the previous hurdles that we had, particularly the hurdle of a victim having to be available to pursue criminal charges or be willing to press charges against their offender, as it is in many other crimes. The state mandated sometime in the mid-1990s that law enforcement will have the ability in domestic violence calls to basically be the body that pursues criminal charges on behalf of the victim, basically making it a lot easier for us to get around that hurdle. As far as arrests go, we're not mandated to make an arrest on any crime, including domestic violence calls, absent what we refer to as probable cause. In all criminal cases, we have to have probable cause or meet that probable cause standard to make an arrest in a case. Quite simply, probable cause is basically a standard that, in layman's terms, means that any evidence that would allow a reasonable person to believe that a specific person committed a crime against someone. And what that usually entails is some sort of evidence in the form of maybe witness statements or a visible injury on a victim, video surveillance, and so on and so forth. There's so many different ways that evidence can be generated and that probable cause can be built. So when probable cause standard has been met by the responding officers on a domestic violence call, then they act on that probable cause by making an arrest or by issuing a temporary pickup for that person's arrest. If there's an absence of that probable cause and that probable cause standard hasn't quite been met, that doesn't mean that the case is over. That just means that the case will be sent as a report to the investigations division for further review. And if there is a possibility of further investigation, that investigation will be done. And if probable cause is met at that point in time, then charges can be filed either as misdemeanor charges with the city prosecutor or as felony charges in the district court. And was there a second part to that question, or was that?
Just that the contributing factors making the arrest rate lower than 100%. I think you covered that.
Yes, I think it did.
All right, to wrap things up, we wanted to give some phone numbers and some suggestions on what to do if you're in a domestic violence situation. So, number one, call 911 if somebody is in immediate danger and police response is needed immediately. You can call Catholic Charities Harbor House at 263-6000. You can call the YWCA Women's Crisis Center at 267-7233. Stepstone Ministries at 265-1611. If you think a friend or family member is a victim of domestic violence, you can speak to them privately. You can call a national domestic hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. And we also recommend developing a safety plan. This safety plan can include having a list of places to stay if you need to leave quickly. Develop a code phrase to be given to family or friends if you immediately need help. Have a list of financial information, and have an envelope containing important documents such as social security cards, birth certificates, and etc. And you can also file a restraining order or protection abuse order if needed. We would like to thank everybody on the panel who took time out of their day to participate in this event. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. We can all do our part to start the conversation, be educated on domestic violence. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.